Hello everyone, welcome back to Inner Spark, your space for real stories that inspire courage, growth, and transformation. Today, we're uncovering the untold truth of a beggar that shocked the world. This story isn't just about poverty, it's about strength, redemption, and how even the most broken people can change lives. By the end, you'll understand why no one should ever be judged by appearances, and why pain can sometimes lead to extraordinary purpose. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because every story here could be the turning point you need in life. On a cold winter morning in London, thousands of people rushed past Trafalgar Square, focused on their screens and their own busy lives. Sitting quietly on the pavement was a man named Eric. His clothes were ripped, his shoes barely intact, and a cardboard sign rested in front of him, "Hungry, please help." To most, he was invisible, just another face among the homeless, someone they avoided making eye contact with. But Eric carried a story far deeper than anyone passing by could imagine. Eric hadn't been born poor. He grew up in Manchester in a modest but loving home. His childhood was full of laughter until tragedy struck. His father passed away when he was just a teenager, and his mother's health rapidly declined. With no guidance, Eric began skipping school, falling into the wrong crowd, and making decisions that pushed him further and further from stability. Eventually, he lost everything, ended up on the streets. His fall from grace was as fast as it was painful. Day after day, Eric sat watching people pass. Some tossed a few coins, but most ignored him completely. He noticed details others missed: the way certain people rushed with stress written on their faces, the ones who smiled at strangers, and those who looked as lonely as he felt. He became a silent observer of life, analyzing human behavior in a way he never had before. Though his belly ached with hunger, his mind was wide awake, storing lessons from the streets. One evening, something different happened. A young woman named Georgia stopped. She didn't hand him money, she simply asked about his story. Her curiosity wasn't fake, her eyes held genuine concern. Eric hesitated, unused to being treated as human, but slowly he began to talk. For the first time in years, he felt seen. That small act, a moment of kindness, lit a spark inside him. Maybe, just maybe, his story wasn't finished yet. The next morning, Eric found an old, half-used notebook in a bin. With a borrowed pen, he began to write. His thoughts flowed onto the page, raw, emotional, and painfully honest. He wrote about rejection, about loneliness, and about the small sparks of kindness he'd witnessed. Each word gave him a sense of release, as if his pain was no longer trapped inside. Writing became his therapy, his way of holding on to hope in a world that often looked away. Georgia returned frequently, bringing food, warm tea, and even old books. She encouraged him to keep writing and reading, telling him that words had power. Eric devoured the biographies she gave him, from leaders who had fallen and risen again to writers who had turned struggle into art. For the first time in years, he began to see himself differently, not just as a beggar, but as a man who still had something to give to the world. One rainy night, a man collapsed across the road. Without hesitation, Eric rushed to him, shielding him from the rain and calling for help. Paramedics arrived and said his quick action saved the man's life. In that moment, Eric realized that even without money, a home, or status, he still had value. His presence, his choices, and his humanity mattered. That realization changed him. Encouraged by Georgia, Eric started sharing pieces of his writing online. At first, he laughed at the idea, who would care about a homeless man's words? But Georgia set up a small blog from the local library. Eric uploaded his notes, one entry at a time. To his shock, strangers began reading. People commented from across the UK and even America, saying his words moved them deeply. His pain was becoming someone else's healing. The blog grew quickly. Soon, a local journalist stumbled upon it and was amazed. He reached out and published Eric's story. Overnight, Eric went from invisible to recognized. Reporters wanted interviews, schools invited him to speak, and podcasts asked him to share his journey. The world no longer saw just a beggar. They saw a man of resilience, someone who had turned pain into purpose. Despite sudden recognition, Eric stayed humble. He never forgot his friends on the streets. He visited them regularly, sharing food and encouragement. To him, fame meant nothing if it didn't lift others with him. He reminded his fellow homeless friends that they weren't forgotten, and that even broken chapters could be rewritten. His authenticity was what made people admire him. As the blog gained traction, an American publishing house approached Eric with an offer for a book deal. He was stunned. The idea of his words being printed and sold worldwide felt surreal. He wrote his memoir titled, "The Streets Taught Me More Than School Ever Could." It wasn't polished writing, it was raw truth. And that honesty made it a bestseller, touching millions around the world. With his earnings, Eric didn't buy luxuries. Instead, he founded a small charity focused on helping the homeless rebuild their lives. His mission was clear: no one should be defined by their worst moments. He used his voice to raise awareness, his money to create opportunities, and his story to inspire others to act with compassion. His life had come full circle, yet Eric never left behind one habit: sitting in public squares. But now he didn't sit with a sign begging for food. His new sign read, "Ask me anything about life." Crowds formed around him, curious to hear his perspective. People from all walks of life, from students to business executives, sat with him, seeking wisdom. He had become a teacher of life through his lived experience. One day, a wealthy businessman admitted to Eric that despite his riches, he felt empty. Eric smiled gently and said, "The richest man is the one who can still give when he has nothing." That single line spread online like wildfire, reminding millions that wealth isn't about money, it's about generosity of spirit. His words struck deep because they came from a man who had once had nothing. Soon, Eric was invited to speak at universities across the UK and US. Students loved him because he wasn't a polished motivational speaker. He was real. He spoke with scars still visible, with emotions that couldn't be faked. Many said his talks changed the way they viewed success and failure, proving that wisdom often comes from unexpected places. He reminded young people that struggle doesn't make you weak, it shapes your strength. Georgia, the woman who had once stopped to listen, became more than a friend. She became his partner in building the foundation. Together they expanded their mission internationally, creating shelters and educational programs. Their work gave thousands of homeless people a new chance at life. Love, kindness, and purpose became the foundation of their shared journey. Their bond showed the world that true connection can grow from a single act of compassion. Years later, Eric stood on a TED Talk stage. Wearing simple clothes, he told millions watching online how a single act of kindness saved him from giving up on life. His words resonated across the world. Never ignore people. The person you overlook may carry the wisdom you need. The Thing to standing ovation proved that his story had become a global lesson. His once forgotten voice was now echoing across continents. Looking back, Eric often reflected on his journey. The world had judged him when he was at his lowest, but rising from that darkness had revealed his true strength. His life wasn't about money or fame, it was about turning pain into purpose and loss into legacy. He realized his scars weren't signs of weakness, they were proof of survival. And every scar held a story worth telling. The truth that shocked the world wasn't that a beggar became famous. It was the realization that greatness can emerge from the most broken places. Eric had taught people everywhere that no one is too lost to be found, and no one is too broken to rise again. His life became a living testimony, that kindness has the power to change destinies. His journey was proof that even rock bottom can be the foundation for something extraordinary. So, the untold truth of Eric is this: you can fall, you can fail, but as long as you breathe, your story isn't finished. One act of kindness can rewrite a destiny, one decision can shift a path, and one voice can inspire millions.